He is Michael Kay. How are you, Michael?
I'm good, Rich. How you doing?
I am doing fine. I love it when you tweet back at me in between innings, Michael. I really enjoy that. You know that.
Well, you know what? I've got to keep the mind active at all times.
But you are still, you're also tweeting back at trolls in between innings, Michael.
You know what? I've stopped. I think over the last week or so, I said, that's it. I'm done with the mentions. I think Twitter's great. You could find information out there. But the stuff with the mentions, sometimes it gets to you.
Yeah.
Makes you think too much, so I'm out.
But just know that I'm out there, my children are out there, and we love us some Michael Kay and everything that you do. And you guys are great. I mean, Leiter, O'Neill, Cohn, Flaherty was great in your absence last week. I don't know if you're hearing the footsteps, Michael.
No. They're all footsteps. We marched together, Rich. We marched together.
Michael Kay joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so Alex Rodriguez is not on the All-Star team.
Right.
Do you think he deserved to be on the All-Star team, Michael?
Well, his numbers, he's in the top 10 in numbers where anybody that's in the top 10 in any of those categories have made the All-Star team. But I think the one variable that's hard to argue is he's a DH. So the guy that's taken after the voted DH is Prince Fielder. Mm-hmm. I think Fielder's had a better year. I think he's 66 point higher when it comes to batting average. Their home runs and their RBIs are about the same. So I could see taking Fielder over him. I just didn't like Yost's excuse. I need maneuverability. Really, you have 33 players on your roster. I mean, that's 8 more than you would have in a regular game, in a World Series game. So I think the maneuverability is there. If they just made this decision totally on the numbers, okay, I guess I could swallow it. But I hope that this decision wasn't made because he's a bad guy and he served a suspension. Because when you do your jail time, you're supposed to go out and get a job, and he's done that. He's been the perfect citizen, and I don't think that should be the reason he's kept off the All-Star team.
If I'm not mistaken, the DH who was voted in, Nelson Cruz, has also served some time for the same thing, the same place.
It's funny. I don't think that the PEDs affect most fans' views of players, because I see how Alex has now been loved in New York because he's producing. But the way to get onto the roster otherwise, if not voted on by fans, is a vote by the players and the managers. And you can't tell me that players still don't have some enmity toward Alex. I mean, he was suing the union at one point. So I'm sure that doesn't help him. And the managers, I can't explain why they would leave him out, other than the fact that they just want 2 DHs. I just think the whole All-Star situation, Rich, is so bogus. The fans should not vote for a game that counts. If it's an exhibition game, great. And if it's an exhibition game, this guy's a lightning rod. You would think that Fox would certainly want him on the roster, because I think it would bring eyeballs to the television. But if the game's going to count toward the home field for the 7th game of the World Series, why in God's name would the fans be voting for that lineup?
Yeah, and you've got, the final vote for the American League, there is a Yankee on it, Brett Gardner, who definitely deserves to be on a list to get into the All-Star game. There's Mike Moustakas, who would be the 19th Royal, I believe, to make this team. I just find it fascinating that A-Rod didn't even make that list for fans to vote on. Now, that's made up by Major League Baseball, correct, Michael?
Major League Baseball, I believe Yost has a heavy hand in that as well.
Okay. So, and it's interesting. Alex was asked about this, and Rodriguez put out a statement saying, "As I've said all season, my #1 goal is helping the Yankees win a championship. I'm excited that we're in a good position to get there. Of course, it would have been an honor to represent the American League next week, but I'll have fun cheering on the guys who were put on the team and watching them protect home field." So Rodriguez isn't hitting the baseball out of the park this year. He's hitting the PR out of the park this year. Where has this Alex Rodriguez been, Michael?
I wish I knew, and I wish that he was here sooner for his sake. I was walking outside the team bus getting onto a charter one day, and he happened to be behind me. And we've had our ups and downs in our relationship, and now we're fine. And I just turned to him out of nowhere, and I said, you know what? Where was the guy who's advising you this year the whole career? And he kind of smiled and laughed. He said, why? I said, because you haven't had a misstep yet. I mean, this is after a year of stumbles and bumbles and fumbles and missteps, and he said the wrong things all the time. Whoever is talking to him now has his ear at the right time, because he really has had a second or even a third act in his career, and a lot of times you don't get that chance. And put that together with the fact that he's actually playing very well and the reason why the Yankees are in first place, I don't think the guy will ever erase the odor from the year-long suspension. but I think that people are giving him a little bit of a break that a lot of people, including myself, didn't expect that he would get.
Who is advising him? Do you know? Does anybody know who's advising
I don't think that he's ever made that public. I know that he's been with Rock Nation, and that the quote that you read out, I think, was released by Ron Berkowitz, who is a member of Rock Nation. But Rock Nation was also there when he was suing the world. So they were advising him at that point to sue the union and to sue the Yankees and to sue the Yankee doctor. Somebody got smart in a hurry, and he kept his mouth shut during the year-long suspension. He didn't show up at any of the Jeter-related events, although he said he wanted to. He didn't feel that it was right to take any of the spotlight away. So it seems like it's the same group of people, but maybe somebody's voice is louder and being heard more by Alex, and it certainly worked. He's been great. He's been unbelievable.
I'm on the phone with Michael Kay of the Yes Network. He also has a very popular radio show in New York City, at Real Michael Kay on Twitter, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what about the American League East as a whole, Michael? Because a lot of people like trashing it, but there are 4 teams above 500 out of the 5, and the one who's below 500, the Red Sox, have played very well of late. How do you handicap this division?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned it. Most people call it the American League least, but I did the games over the weekend with David Cohn, and he was really singing the praises. He said, I don't know how you knock this division. He said, the teams are very, very good. He said, I would put those teams up against any other teams in the American League. There aren't any super teams, and probably the best team that I've seen this year, Rich, is Kansas City in terms of youth, the young legs, active, good, great bullpen, stuff like that. But I don't think the Yankees are far behind any of them. And I also don't discount the Red Sox. I think that's one mistake that people are making. While the Red Sox are out of it, they're going to be sellers. I don't necessarily believe that. They won 7 of 11. They've got a very robust farm system, so if they want to go out and get a Cole Hamels, they certainly have the people to do it. I think that they've got a lot to make up. They've got to jump 4 teams, but they're still in it. The one team out of the 5 that I don't think has the lasting power to be in it is Tampa Bay. The Yankees just saw them this weekend. The Yankees won the first 2 games. Tampa Bay beat up on them on Sunday. But, Rich, I just don't see them hitting enough. Their pitching's very good. They'll get back over to Rizzi. Moore is now rounding into shape after coming up the DL. So the pitching is outstanding. Their bullpen's not great. I don't love their bullpen. So I don't look at them as a team that's going to be in. I think it's going to come down to the Yankees and the Orioles. And I think you'll laugh at me. I believe in the Red Sox more than I do the Blue Jays.
Oh, I'm not laughing at you about that. I mean, it's just, shoot, you and I, coming from the area, we go back to Yastrzemski and Bucky Dent and all those years. I mean, you never count the Red Sox out.
And I don't want to count the Blue Jays out, but I just don't love their pitching. And they've used so much of their minor league equity to make the trades that they made, getting Donaldson and things like that. I don't know what's left out there for them to go out and get pitching, because I really believe they need pitching.
Well, I mean, and a team that I think can use the equity to go get a pitcher. I know you didn't make the road trip. You didn't go to Houston and for the Yes Network. But that team seems to me, with this kid Correa at shortstop, and if you've got to go to Houston and have to beat them in a series, if they have home field advantage in that bandbox of a park and the fans show up, I wouldn't discount the Astros, and certainly they have the capital go ahead and make a move at that deadline to even strengthen things.
They do, and they have the money, too, because they haven't spent any money over the last 4 years. And, in a short series, Rich, they're going to pitch Dallas Keuchel twice. Maybe 3 times if it lines up that way. And he's been pitching so beautifully that he could play a factor as well. The Angels are dysfunctional right now with DePoto resigning. The A's are interesting. They play the Yankees starting tonight, and they have the 6th best run differential in the league, but they're on pace to lose 90 games. So those 2 numbers don't quite jive. So I don't know if they're going to make a second-half run. Billy Beane always usually makes some important trades, and if he does, if he's a buyer, well, that's going to unsettle the rest of baseball, because I think a lot of teams in baseball need Ben Zobrist. So who's the team that's going to step up and get him? And if the A's aren't sellers and Beane believes that he could actually make a run at it, Zobrist all of a sudden doesn't get traded.
Well, in terms of the Astros plans, I know a place you can get their password. I know where you can find that one out.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'll let you know. I don't have it myself, but I know how to potentially find the people to acquire that, Michael.
Well, Rich, like you, and I now have 2 very young children, so getting fired is not an option.
You know what? And let me tell you this, too, Michael, before I let you go here, how much I respect you as a broadcaster. because I know you've got Center Stage, a fabulous interview show that you do on Yes, and the guests that you get there are spectacular. They're great. But you're greedy. You want more. You want more of the A-listers. The fact that you sent O'Neill out of the booth to go try and book Jimmy Fallon for your show was a next-level maneuver, Michael. Did it work?
It turned out to be so funny because O'Neill is so amenable to do anything. I turned around, he was out of the booth. I was just joking. I mean, who would ever do that? And he's down there in the stands. And a long answer to your question, yeah, it worked. Not supposedly, Fallon told Rudy Giuliani, who was sitting there, yeah, I'll definitely do the show. Rudy Giuliani called up the president of the Yankees, Randy Levine, and said, Jimmy Fallon said he'll do the show. Tell Michael. And then Randy Levine emailed me during the game and said Fallon's going to do the show. So we're trying to set it up. But I thought that was a good maneuver. I mean nothing to Jimmy Fallon, but Paul O'Neill means everything to everybody. So I use everything at my disposal.
Hey, we just had Todd Frazier on the show. He was talking about meeting Paul O'Neill back in the day and how that meant so much to him. And we talked about Jeter, the whole bit with him recreating the photograph from Toms River, New Jersey. Todd Frazier. He loves him, some Paul O'Neill. Everybody loves him.
Everybody does, and in his own way, Rich, and you do watch the games you said with the kids. O'Neill is a very special broadcaster because it all comes naturally to him. He's great. Sitting there with facts and figures. He's just being Paul O'Neill, and we both grew up listening to Phil Rizzuto, and I think Paul O'Neill is this generation's Phil Rizzuto.
So does that mean he's on the George Washington Bridge by the 7th inning, Michael? Is that what you're
saying?
What?
No, he's not yet because he does stay up in Westchester when he's here, and he complains starting in the 7th inning, but he doesn't have the equity to lead yet.
You got to build up the equity. I love it.
Yes.
Michael, take care of yourself. Are you doing the game tonight on Yes?
I'm doing the game tonight with Leiter, so I've got to get the Red Bull in order for him, and we'll be good to go.
Very good. I'll be there. I'll be watching.
All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Family, hello.
You bet. Same to you. That's Michael K.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.